Hi class, this is your instructor, Scholar Huff. We're in the 34th chapter now. Chapter 34, Deuterostomes. At first glance, echinoderms such as sea stars and sea cucumbers, and chordates such as the rhinoceros and the red-billed oxpecker pictured here, you would seem have little in common. And yes, that oxpecker is right there. Yet both exhibit the same pattern of development, in which the anus is derived from the blastopore and the mouth originates from another part of the embryo. This synapomorphy unites the two clades as members of Deuterostomia. Members of the exclusively marine phylum Echinodermata are characterized by deuterostome development and possession of an internal skeleton. This endoskeleton is comprised of hard calcium carbonate plates that lie just beneath the delicate skin. The term echinoderm, which means spiny skin, refers to the spines or bumps that occur on these plates in many species. Echinoderms including sea stars, brittle stars, sea urchins, sand dollars, and sea cucumbers are some of the most familiar animals on the seashore. All have 5 axes of symmetry and thus are said to be pentarally symmetrical. Echinodermata is an ancient group of marine animals that appeared nearly 600 million years ago and that contains about 12,000 living species. Echinoderms have an endoskeleton. Covered by living tissues. A unique feature of echinoderms is the hydraulic system that aids in movement or feeding. This fluid-filled system, called a water vascular system, is a modification of one of several coelomic spaces and is composed of a central ring canal with radial canals, from which radial canals extend. Although an excellent fossil record extends back into the Cambrian period, the origin of echinoderms remains unclear. Their phylogenetic placement suggests that they evolved from bilaterally symmetrical ancestors, and this hypothesis is supported by the observation that the echinoderm larvae are bilaterally symmetrical. The body of echinoderms undergoes a fundamental shift during development, from bilaterally symmetrical larvae to pentarally symmetrical adults. Dorsal, ventral, anterior, and posterior have no meaning without a head or tail for orientation. Thus, orientation of the body of an adult echinoderm is described in reference to the mouth. All systems of the adult echinoderm are organized with branches radiating from the center. For example, the nervous system consists of a central nerve ring from which branches arise. Although the animals are capable of complex behavior patterns, there is no centralization of function. In many echinoderms, the mouth faces the substratum, or faces downward, although in sea cucumbers the animal's axis is horizontal, so the animal crawls with its mouth foremost. And in crinoids, the sea lilies or feather stars, the oral surface is located opposite to the substrate. Echinoderms have a delicate epidermis that stretches over an endoskeleton composed of calcium carbonate plates called ossicles. In echinoderms, such as asteroids, sea stars, the individual skeletal elements are loosely joined to one another. In others, especially echinoids, the sea urchins, and sand dollars, the ossicles abut one another, tightly forming a rigid shell called a test. In sea cucumbers, by contrast, the ossicles are widely scattered, so the body wall is flexible. The ossicles in certain portions of the body of some echinoderms are perforated by pores tube feet, part of the water vascular system discussed earlier, extend through these pores. Echinoderms have collagenous tissue, which can change in texture from tough or rubbery to weak and fluid. This amazing tissue accounts for attributes of echinoderms, such as the ability to atomize or cast off parts. This tissue is also responsible for a sea cucumber's being able to change from almost rigid to flaccid in a matter of seconds. The water vascular system is readily organized. From the ring canal, which encircles the animal's esophagus, a radial canal extends into each branch of the body. Water enters the water vascular system by the madreporite, a sieve-like plate in most echinoderms on the animal's surface, and flows to the ring canal through the stone canal, so named because it's reinforced by calcium carbonate. Each radial canal in turn extends through short side branches into the hollow tube feet. At the base of each tube foot in most types of echinoderms is a muscular sac, the ampulla. When the ampulla contracts, the fluid is prevented from entering the radial canal by a one-way valve is forced into the tube foot, thus extending it. Contraction of longitudinal muscles on the side of the tube foot wall causes the tube foot to bend. Relaxation of the muscles in the ampulla and contraction of all longitudinal muscles in the tube foot force the fluid back into the ampulla. Gas exchange in most echinoderms is through the body surface and tube feet. In addition, a sea cucumber has paired respiratory trees, which branch off the hindgut. Many echinoderms are able to regenerate lost parts. Some echinoderms can lose and then regrow an arm. When some sea cucumbers are disturbed, they cast out their entire digestive system and subsequently regrow it over a period of several months. Some echinoderms can reproduce asexually by splitting. However, most reproduction in echinoderms is sexual. Gametes are generally released into the water where fertilization occurs, and free-swimming bilaterally symmetrical larvae developed. Each class of echinoderms has a characteristic type of larva. These larvae develop while floating in the ocean as plankton until they metamorphose into secondary adults. 5 extant classes include Astordiae, which includes the sea stars or starfish and the sea daisies, Holothuriidae, the sea cucumbers, Echinoideae, the sea urchins and sand dollars, Crinoideae, the sea lilies and sea feathers, and Ophiordiae, the brittle stars. So first up is Astordiae, with the sea stars or starfishes. They are important predators in many marine systems. Most have 5 arms. Some have multiples of 5. So they are abundant in the intertidal zone, but also occur at the greatest depths of the ocean, about 10,000 meters. Sand dollars and sea urchins lack arms. 5 double rows of tube feet protrude through the plates of the calcareous skeleton. Sea urchins are eaten by humans. Brittle stars are the largest class of echinoderms. The animal here has no anus, and waste is eliminated through the mouth. The final animal phylum. Members of phylum Chordata exhibit great changes in the endoskeleton from that seen in echinoderms. The endoskeleton of echinoderms is functionally similar to the exoskeleton of arthropods, a hard shell with muscles attached to its inner surface. Chordates employ a very different kind of endoskeleton, one that is truly internal. Members of the phylum Chordata have a flexible rod that develops down the back of the embryo. Muscles attached to this rod allow early chordates to swing their bodies from side to side, swimming through water, too. This key evolutionary advance, attaching muscles to an internal element, started chordates along an evolutionary path that led to vertebrates, and, for the first time, truly large animals. Four features characterize chordates and have placed an important role in the evolution of the phylum, which includes fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. The nerve cord, which is a single hollow nerve cord, and it runs just beneath the dorsal surface of the animal. In vertebrates, the dorsal nerve cord differentiates into the brain and spinal cord, the central nervous system. The notochord cord is a flexible rod that forms on the dorsal side of the primitive gut in the early embryo and is present at some developmental stage in all chordates. The notochord cord is located just below the nerve cord. The notochord cord may persist in some chordates, in others it is replaced during the embryonic development by the vertebral column that forms around the nerve cord, i.e. replaced by the spine. Pharyngeal gill slits connect the pharynx, a muscular tube that links the mouth cavity and the esophagus with the external environment. In terrestrial vertebrates, the slits do not actually connect to the outside and are better termed pharyngeal pouches. Pharyngeal pouches are present in embryos of all vertebrates. They become slits open to the outside in animals with gills, but leave no extra trace in those lacking gills. But leaves no external trace in those lacking gills. The presence of these structures in all vertebrate embryos provides evidence of their aquatic ancestry. And finally, the postanal tail. Chordates have a postanal tail that extends beyond the anus, at least during their embryonic development. Nearly all animals have a terminal anus. All chordates have all four of these characteristics at some point in their lives. For example, humans as embryos have pharyngeal gill pouches, a dorsal nerve cord, a postanal tail, and notochord cord. As adults, the nerve cord remains, and the notochord cord is replaced by the vertebral column. All but one pair of pharyngeal gill pouches is lost. This remaining pair forms the eustachian tubes that connect the throat and the middle ear. The postanal tail regresses, forming the tailbone or coccyx. The presence of these traits in human embryos is an example of how patterns of development reflect evolutionary change. A number of other chordates also distinguish the chordates from other animals. A number of other characteristics also distinguish the chordates from other animals. Chordate muscles are arranged in segmented blocks, an arrangement that affects the basic organization of the chordate body and can often be clearly seen in embryos of this phylum. Most chordates have an internal skeleton against which muscles work. Either this internal skeleton or the notochord cord makes possible the extraordinary powers of locomotion characteristic of this group. And this is a mouse embryo at about 11 and a half days of development. Phylum Chordata can be divided into three subphyla. Two of these, Urochordata and Cephalochordata, are non-vertebrate. The third subphylum, is Vertebrata. The non-vertebrate chordates do not form vertebrae or other bones, and in the case of urochordates, their adult form is greatly different from what we expect chordates to look like. The tunicates and salps, subphylum Urochordata, are a group of about 2,000 species of marine animals. Most of them are immobile as adults, with only the larva having a nodal cord and nerve cord. As adults, they exhibit a major body cavity. They exhibit neither a major body cavity nor visible signs of segmentation. Most species occur in shallow waters, but are found at great depths. In some tunicates, adults are colonial. Living in masses on the ocean floor. The pharynx is lined with numerous cilia. Beating of the cilia draws stream water into the pharynx. A stream of water into the pharynx, where microscopic food particles become trapped in a mucus sheet secreted from a structure called an endostyle. The tadpole-like larvae of tunicates exhibit all the basic characteristics of chordates. The larvae do not feed and have poorly developed gut. They remain free-swimming for only a few days before settling to the bottom and attaching themselves to a suitable substrate by the means of a sucker. Tunicates change so much as they mature and adjust development to an immobile, filter-feeding existence that it is difficult to discern their evolutionary relationships by solely examining an adult. Many adult tunicates secrete a tunic, a tough sac composed mainly of cellulose, a substance frequently found in the cell walls of plants and algae, but rarely found in animals. The tunic surrounds the animal and gives the subphylum its name. Colonial tunicates may have a common sac and a common opening to the outside. Subphylum Cephalocordata. Lancelets, subphylum Cephalocordata, were given their English name because they resemble a lancet, a small two-edged surgical knife. These scaleless chordates, a few centimeters long, occur widely in shallow water throughout the oceans of the world. There are about 30 species of this subphylum. Most belong to the genus Branchiostoma, formerly called Amphioxus, a name still used widely. In lancelets, the nodal cord runs the entire length of the dorsal nerve cord and persists throughout the animal's life. Lancelets spend most of their time partly buried in sandy or muddy substrates, with only their anterior ends protruding. They can swim, although they rarely do so. Their muscles can easily be seen through their thin, transparent skin, as a series of discrete blocks called myomeres. Lancelets have many more pharyngeal gill slits than fishes do. Their skin lacks pigment and only has a single layer of cells, unlike multilayered skin of vertebrates. The lancet body is pointed at both ends. There is no distinguishable head or sensory structure other than pigmented light receptors. Lancelets feed on microscopic plankton, using a current created by beating cilia that line the oral hood, pharynx, and gill slits. The gill slits provide an exit for the water and an adaptation for filter feeding. The oral hood projects beyond the mouth and bears sensory tentacles, which also ring the mouth. They are the closest relative to vertebrates, and they are shown here before you. Vertebrates from subphylum Vertebrata are chordates with a spinal column. The name vertebrate comes from the individual bony or cartilaginous segments called vertebrae. And that make up the spine. Vertebrates differ from tunicates and lancelets in two important respects: the vertebral column and the head. In all vertebrates except the earliest diverging fishes, the nodal cord is replaced during embryonic development by a vertebral column. The column is a series of bony or cartilaginous vertebrae that enclose and protect the dorsal nerve cord like a sleeve. Vertebrates have a distinct and well-differentiated head with 3 pairs of well-developed sensory organs. The brain is encased within a protective box, the skull made of bone or cartilage. In addition to these two key characteristics, vertebrates differ from other chordates in other important respects. Neural crest, a unique group of embryonic cells, the neural crest cells, contributes to the development of many vertebrate structures. These cells develop on the crest of the neural tube as it forms by invaginating and pinching together the neural plate. Neural crest cells then migrate to various locations in the developing embryo, where they participate in the development of many different structures. Internal organs are characteristic of vertebrates include the liver, the kidneys, and endocrine glands. Ductless endocrine glands secrete hormones that help regulate many of the body's functions. All vertebrates have a heart and a closed circulatory system. In both their circulatory and their excretory functions, vertebrates differ markedly from other animals. And the endoskeleton of most vertebrates is made up of cartilage or bone. Cartilage and bone are specialized tissues containing fibers of protein, collagen, compacted together. Bone also contains crystals of calcium phosphate. Vertebrates evolved in the oceans about 500 million years ago during the Cambrian period. Many of them look like a flattened hot dog. Yes, a flattened hot dog during the Cambrian period, with a mouth at one end and a fin at the other. The appearance of hen's jaws was a major advance, opening up new food gathering options. And jawed fishes became the dominant creatures in the sea. Their descendants, the tetrapods, invaded the land. One clade of tetrapods, the amniotes, appeared about 300 million years ago. Two major clades of amniotes, this synapsid and diapsid, were better suited to living out of water, and within 50 million years they replaced the non-amniote tetrapods as the dominant land vertebrates. With the success of amniotes, vertebrates truly came to dominate the surface of the earth. Many kinds of reptiles evolved, ranging from the smaller than a chicken to being bigger than a bus, including some that flew and others that swam. In addition, the amniotes gave rise to the two remaining great lines of terrestrial vertebrates. Synapsid amniotes produced the mammals, and birds evolved from a type of reptile. Dinosaurs and mammals appeared at about the same time in the fossil record, 220 million years ago. For over 150 million years, dinosaurs dominated the face of the earth. During these 1.5 centuries, the largest mammal was no bigger than a cat. Then, in the Cretaceous mass extinction, about 66 million years ago, the dinosaurs and other types of reptiles abruptly disappeared. In their absence, mammals and birds quickly took their place, becoming abundant and diverse. The history of vertebrates has been a series of evolutionary advances that have allowed vertebrates to invade first the land and then the air. So while considering vertebrate evolution, keep in mind two vertebrate groups. Fish and reptiles are paraphyletic. Some fish are more closely related to other vertebrates than they are related to some other fish. Similarly, some reptiles are more closely related to birds than they are to other reptiles. For the time being, we will continue to use the traditional classification of vertebrates, bearing in mind that the evolutionary implications of the paraphyly of fish and reptiles. Over half of all vertebrates are fishes. The most diverse vertebrate group, fishes, provide the evolutionary base for the invasion of land. In many ways, early tetrapods can be viewed as transitional fish out of water. Fishes exhibit 5 key characteristics: a vertebral column, jaws and paired appendages, internal gills, single loop blood circulation, and nutritional deficiencies. The inability to synthesize aromatic amino acids has been inherited by all their vertebrate descendants. A fundamentally important evolutionary advance that occurred in the late Silurian period was the development of jaws. Jaws evolved from gill arches, which in jawless fishes were cartilaginous struts used to reinforce tissue between gill slits to hold the slits open. This transformation was not as radical as it might have first appeared. So now let's begin with classes. Class Chondrichthyes. Sharks, skates, and rays became the dominant sea predators in the Carboniferous period. Cartilaginous skeleton, calcified with granules of calcium carbonate. It was light, it was strong skeleton. Reproduction in class Chondrichthyes differs from that of most fishes. Shark eggs are fertilized internally. During mating, the male grasps the female with modified fins called claspers, and sperm run from the male into the female through grooves of the claspers. Although a few species lay eggs, the eggs of most species develop within the female's body, and the pups are born alive. The bony fishes. They evolved at the same time as sharks, however, adopted a heavy internal skeleton made completely of bone. So instead of gaining speed through lightness, as sharks did, bony fishes adopted a heavier internal skeleton of bone. Bone is strong, providing a base for which strong muscles can pull. So not only is the internal skeleton made of bone, but so is the outer covering of plates and scales. Most bony fishes have highly mobile fins, very thin scales, and completely symmetrical tails, which keep the fish on a straight course as it swims through the water. Bony fishes are the most species-rich group of fishes, indeed of all vertebrates. There are several dozen orders, containing more than 30,000 living species. Class Amphibia. Lobe-finned fish gave rise to species that left the water and evolved 4 legs to walk on land. We call these animals tetrapods. Living tetrapods comprise the amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, and include some groups like snakes that have secondarily lost one or both sets of limbs. 5 distinguishing features are the legs, lungs, cutaneous respiration, pulmonary veins, and a partially divided heart. The word amphibia means double life. It nicely describes this essential quality of modern-day amphibians, reflecting their ability to live in 2 worlds, the aquatic world of their fish ancestors and the terrestrial world, the world they invaded. The successful invasion of land by vertebrates posed a number of challenges. Legs to be supported by weight, lungs to extract oxygen from air, a redesigned heart and circulatory system to drive larger muscles, reproduction still in water to prevent egg drying, and a system to prevent whole body desiccation. So we have the Anura order, the Chordata, and the Apoda. 3 modern amphibian groups. Frogs have smooth skin that is moist with long legs. Toads have bumpy, dry skin with short legs. Class Reptilia. So if you think of amphibians as a first draft of a manuscript about survival on land, then amniotes, the clade that comprises reptiles, mammals, and birds, are the finished book. For each of the 5 key challenges of surviving on land, amniotes, named for the amniotic egg they all possess, improve on the innovations of the amphibians. The arrangement of legs evolved to support the body's weight more effectively, allowing amniote bodies to be bigger and to run. Lungs and heart became more efficient, and the skin was covered with dry plates or scales, followed later by the evolution of hair in mammals and feathers in birds to minimize water loss, and watertight coverings evolved for eggs. The amniotic egg. It has the chorion, the outermost layer that allows the gas exchange. This is the first of 4 membranes. The amnion encases the embryo in a fluid-filled cavity. The yolk sac provides food, and then allantosis contains the excreted wastes from the embryo. So we have lizards, snakes, tuatuas, turtles, tortoises, and sea turtles, crocodiles, alligators, and then those who are extinct, reptiles, the dinosaurs. So all living reptiles are ectothermic. They obtain heat from external sources, and they regulate body temperature by moving in and out of sunlight, compared to the endothermic animals that generate their own heat internally. So we'll order Crocodilia, which includes the crocodiles, which are typically nocturnal in tropical and subtropical regions, and then the alligators, which are only 2 species in the southern United States and China. So we have crocodiles and birds. Let us begin. Class Aves. So modern birds lack teeth and have only vestigial tails, but they still retain many reptilian characteristics. For instance, birds lay amniotic eggs. Also, reptilian scales are present on feet and lower legs of birds, and then 2 primary characteristics distinguishing birds from living reptiles. A, feathers. They are modified reptilian scales made of keratin. Just like hair and scales, feathers serve 2 functions, providing lift for flight and conserving heat. The structure of feathers combines maximum flexibility with strength and strength with minimum weight. And then secondly, a flight skeleton. The bones of birds are thin and hollow. And there are many orders of birds: the passeriforms, the apoptiforms, piciforms, psittacatiforms, caridiforms, columbiforms. There are even more bird orders. So modern birds are diverse but share several characteristics. So today, birds in Class Aves are as diverse as reptiles, with more than 10,000 species, more than half of which occur in the order Passeriformes. So So owls have curved talons and sharp beaks for tearing prey. Ducks have flat beaks to shovel through mud, and finches have short, thick beaks for crushing seed. So adaptations for flight include efficient respiration, efficient circulation with a rapid heartbeat, and then endothermy. Class Mammalia. There are about 6,500 living species of mammals in class Mammalia, fewer than the number of fishes, amphibians, reptiles, or birds. Most large land-dwelling vertebrates are mammals. When we look out over the African plain, we see big mammals, the lions, zebras, gazelles, and antelope. But the typical mammal is not that large. Of the 5,000 species of mammals, almost 4,000 are rodents, bats, shrews, or moles. Mammals are distinguished from all other classes of vertebrates by two fundamental characteristics: hair and mammary glands. All mammals have hair. Even apparently hairless whales and dolphins grow sensitive bristles on their snouts. The evolution of fur and the ability to regulate body temperature enabled mammals to invade colder climates that ectothermic reptiles do not inhabit. Mammals are endothermic animals and typically maintain body temperatures higher than the temperature of their surroundings. The dense undercoat of many mammals reduces the amount of body heat that escapes. Another function of hair is camouflage. Unlike feathers, which evolved from modified reptilian scales, mammalian hair is a completely different form of skin structure. An individual mammalian hair is long, protein-rich filament that extends like a stiff thread from a bulb-like foundation beneath the skin, known as a hair follicle. The filament is composed mainly of dead, keratinized cells, with fibrous protein, as I just mentioned, keratin. The mammary glands. All female mammals possess mammary glands that can secrete milk. Newborn mammals, born without teeth, suckle this milk as their primary food. Even baby whales are nursed by their mother's milk. Milk is a very high calorie food, important because the high energy needs of a rapidly growing newborn mammal. About 50% of energy in the milk comes from fat. Endothermy and then the placenta are also notable features. As stated previously, mammals are endothermic, a crucial adaptation that has allowed them to be able to be active any time of day or night and to colonize extreme environments from deserts to ice fields. Also, more efficient blood circulation provided by the four-chambered heart and more efficient respiration provided by the diaphragm make it possible the higher metabolic rate on which endothermy depends. And then the placenta. In most mammal species, females carry the developing young internally in a uterus, nourishing them through the placenta, and give birth to live young. The placenta is a specialized organ that brings the bloodstream to the fetus into close contact of the mother. Food, water, and oxygen can pass across from the mother to the child, and wastes pass over to the mother's blood to be carried away. Other adaptations are teeth. Different types of teeth are highly specialized to match particular eating habits. So we can contrast the carnivore teeth to herbivore teeth. Two, the digestion of plants. Herbivorous mammals rely on mutualistic partnerships with bacteria for cellulose breakdown and the development of hooves and horns. Hooves are specialized keratin pads, and horns are bone surrounded by keratin, and antlers are made of bone, not keratin. Flight. So, flying mammals include the bats. They're the only mammals capable of powered flight. The wing is a leathery membrane of skin and muscle stretched over four finger bones, and they navigate in the dark by way of echolocation. So now we've moved on to major subclasses of mammals. So we have the Prototheria, the most primitive, that lay eggs. And the only living group are the monotremes, and they are the Prototheria, the most primitive ones. Then we have the Theria, and they are viviparous, i.e., young or born live, and they are both marsupial or pouch mammals and the placental mammals. So monotremes, they lay eggs. They lay shelled eggs. The duck-billed platypus and 4 species of echidna are the only living monotremes. Among living mammals, only monotremes lay shelled eggs. The structure of their shoulder and pelvis is more similar to that of early reptiles than to any other living mammal. Also, like reptiles, monotremes have a cloaca, a single opening through which feces, urine, and reproductive products leave the body. Marsupial mammals. The major difference between marsupials and other mammals is their pattern of embryonic development. In marsupials, a fertilized egg is surrounded by a chorion and amniotic membranes, but no shell is formed around the egg as it does in monotremes. So after birth, it crawls into a marsupial pouch, latches onto nipple, and continues to develop. So the kangaroo, which is in isolation of Australia, and then the opossum, and that's the only North American marsupial. And that's the Virginia opossum, which migrated north from Central America within the last 3 million years. So soon after fertilization, the embryonic marsupial is born, and it emerges tiny, hairless, and crawls into the pouch, where it latches on and continues development. The placental mammals. So a placenta nourishes the embryo throughout its entire development and forms the uterus of placental mammals. And forms, in the uterus. So most species of mammals living today, including humans, are in this group, which includes all but 2 orders of living mammals, although some scientists recognize 4 or more orders of marsupials rather than 1. So early in the course of embryonic development, placentals form. Both fetal and maternal blood vessels are abundant in the placenta, and the substances can be exchanged efficiently between bloodstreams with the mother and offspring. The fetal placenta is formed from the membranes of the chorion and the allantois. In placental mammals, unlike marsupials, the young undergo a considerable period of development before they are born. So here are major orders of placental mammals: Rodentia, Chiroptera, Eulyptophyla, and then the primates. And even more. Artiodactyla, Carnivora, Lagomorpha, Psittacea, Edentata, Perissodactyla, and then Proboscidea. So I will not get into the evolution of primates, though what I will say so Australopithecines. Australopithecus, Homo erectus, And then the modern humans first appeared in Africa over 500,000 years ago. So there is where it began, on the continent of Africa. Well, this has been your instructor,